Welcome to this workshop on beneficial insects presented by the Master Gardeners of Nevada County. We'll do a round of quick introductions. I'm Sylvia Wright. I have been gardening since I was about 10 when my dad taught me to raise tomatoes hydroponically. Now I grow ornamentals in my yard and in containers with a focus on plants for birds and insects. And now here's Kim.
Hello, my name's Kim Lockwood, and I've been a Master Gardener since 2019 in the class of my co-presenters. I love plants, I love children, and I've grown for a love of bugs now that I know more about them. So I have a real desire to spread what I learned to the kids. And of course, as Master Gardeners, we're always learning.
Good morning. My name is Lisa Moody. I've been a Master Gardener as well since 2019. I've been in the foothills for 32 years. And I gardened starting very young as well with my grandparents. And yeah, I mostly grow ornamentals now because I don't have enough sun. Margaret.
And hi, my name is Margaret Irvin, and I too have been in Master Gardeners since 2019. I moved to the foothills just 3 years ago, so this is new for me. I've loved gardening my entire life, but where I came from, you could just pluck something and put it in the dirt and it would grow, in the soil, and it would grow. Here it's quite a different, quite different. And I may be a Master Gardener, but my garden is nowhere near a masterpiece. It's an ongoing project, which I love.
Great. All right, and now Kim will begin our presentation.
In this workshop, oh, just a note. Today we will be, sometimes I will refer to insects as bugs, and technically all bugs are insects, but all insects are not bugs. So things like spiders and flying and crawling things, oftentimes we refer to as bugs, but you'll know that I'm talking about insects today. So what do we hope to share with you today? Why beneficial insects matter and how to get them in your garden. We're going to give you top 5 beneficial insects for our area, and also try and show you all the wonderful plants that are available to keep those beneficial insects in your garden, hopefully year round. So, is this what you aspire to as a gardener? If the image that you see in front of you was your garden, would you believe that all is right in your garden world? How about this image right here? If this is what you saw, do you see potential problems? And do you feel the need to rid your garden of the pests? Well, we want to show you how a healthy garden is a diverse ecosystem with all kinds of plants and insects which work together. So bring on those bugs. Sometimes our first reaction to seeing a bug in our garden is to cringe and to reach for the poison. Although I doubt that you're doing exactly that, our first reaction is often to look for how to quickly kill those pests. But perhaps you should consider thinking differently about those bugs. Are they really foes or are they our friends? After all, out of the 900,000 different kinds of insects in the world, the overwhelming majority are not plant pests. There are many who are actually our garden friends. Maybe we need to rethink the role these bugs play in creating a healthy, complex ecosystem in our garden. Some insects in our garden eat plants, but other insects eat the insects that eat plants. These insects are predatory. We call those insects beneficial because they keep the insects who damage our plants in check. There are numerous reasons for encouraging beneficial insects to inhabit our gardens. First, it's a healthy alternative to using pesticides, which can potentially contain harmful chemicals as a means for pest control. Some pesticides can be non-discriminatory killers. In other words, the use of some pesticides can kill all insects that are within the sprayed area, not just the pest you wish to eradicate. If it doesn't kill the non-targeted insects, the use of some pesticides can prevent them from reproducing or interfere with their ability to catch the prey, which could be the bad bugs. This includes the insects you might want in your gardens, such as butterflies, lady beetles, damsel and dragonflies, as well as pollinators, such as bees, necessary for food production and the completion of the life cycle of plants. Encouraging beneficials as a means of pest control instead of the use of pesticides limits the potential for contaminants on your homegrown food, in your water, soil, and air. A complex and diverse garden ecosystem in which bugs are allowed to thrive will encourage other forms of wildlife to dwell there as well, such as birds. Restricting use of pesticides allows enough insects, which are a major source of nutrition for most birds, to survive and thrive. Did you know that caterpillars transfer more energy from plants to animals than any other species? But of course, many caterpillars can cause damage to your garden. But if you want the birds and the butterflies in your garden, you need some caterpillars. Eventually, if you allow the beneficials to fulfill their role in your diversified garden ecosystem, you will find that for the most part, pests will stay at an acceptable level. Which brings us to how much you need to rethink your attitude about dealing with pests in order to reap the benefits of beneficials in your garden. First of all, before or after cringing at the sight of unwanted insects or plant damage, take time to assess the situation. You need to know what you are dealing with before you take any action. Always take time to detect. Observe what the pests are doing. Are they eating the stems, the leaves, and or the fruit? Are they laying eggs? Do they fly? Taking a picture for future reference is always good. The next step is to identify what you're dealing with. This requires you to spend some time researching, getting to know your good and bad bugs, their life cycles and habitats. This is where the UCANR IPM website will be of great help to you. We have a link at the end of our presentation in the reference materials that will take you there. This will help you to identify your pest and give you suggestions for your next steps. Then take action based on your research and the IPM recommendations. Finally, after you have proceeded with your plan to address the situation, you need to monitor. Keep a close eye to see if any beneficials have come to the rescue or if there's any kind of change after applying your preventative measurements which were recommended on the IPM site. If you're patient, they will come. Know that the bad bugs or pests always show up first, and the beneficials will come after, as they need food to eat and will show their presence when there is a sufficient amount. Remember, the darkness always comes before the dawn. You must practice some patience for the natural cycle to run its course. Lastly, be prepared for some imperfection in your garden. You may have to live with a few unwanted bugs. Remember, they're food for predators, birds, and larvae of beautiful butterflies. But in the big picture, your garden will be a much healthier and diverse ecosystem for all to enjoy. But you're probably saying, so who are these beneficial insects and how do I encourage them to come and stay? So Lisa is going to tell you about several, their life cycles and their needs. And then Margaret will share all about which plants support these fabulous bugs in our garden. Take it away, Lisa.
Thank you, Kim. Sylvia's showing a slide, and I want to find out if you recognize these 5 beneficials. Let's go over some local beneficials that you'll see here in the foothills and most of the western states. Actually, you might never see them, but trust that they should be there provided you don't use pesticides. You need to encourage a welcoming yard for them to come and play and eat and stay. It's about letting Mother Nature do her thing. These 5 beneficial insects selflessly do their work devouring our pests during the different life cycles, and many of them are also pollinators. The upcoming slides are going to help you identify these beneficials. First, let me show you the 5 adults on this slide, and let's go clockwise. The insect on the far left is a Surfeiter Hoverfly. The insect above on the left is a predatory wasp. The insect on the right on the top is a soldier beetle. There's our familiar lady beetle, and you probably recognize the beautiful lacewing. I want you to pay close attention to the images of different life cycle. Be aware that these beneficial insects might be stealth-like when reducing your disruptive pet populations, but knowing that they're working might help you foster a healthier relationship with perhaps a newfound friend. Let's talk about predator and parasitoid wasps. Now, don't be afraid that I'm starting out with a group of wasps. These tiny to medium-sized wasps rarely sting people. They consume aphids, hornworms, stink bugs, squash bugs, beetles, and others. And the wasps eat their prey at every stage of the prey's development: eggs, larvae, pupae, and adults. This makes predator and parasitoid wasps awesome pest control partners. They kill those garden pests in 2 ways. Predator wasps capture their prey and feed it directly to their young. Parasitoid wasps lay their eggs in or on their prey. When the eggs hatch, the young wasp larvae eat the prey animal either from the outside in or the inside out. Here are the life stages of the parasitoid wasp. Starting on the left with the adult wasp is cozying up to a caterpillar. She's targeting her prey. In the top picture, an adult wasp lays an egg. The next photo on the right shows little wasp larvae, which feed on the prey until they're ready to pupate. At the bottom is a tomato hornworm with dozens of wasp larvae that have eaten their way out of the hornworm and formed cocoons or pupae. Soon they'll hatch and fly away, spreading disruption to more hornworms. The hornworm at this point is still alive and may continue walking around, but it has stopped eating. In fact, if you see a hornworm with this predicament, the best way to protect your garden is to just leave it alone. Predator and parasitoid wasps, because they are small and spend much of their lives hidden, many people are unaware of how common and important they are in controlling insect pests. Help them thrive in your garden by not using broad spectrum insecticides that can kill them. Let's talk about the syrphid fly. All right, let me fill you in on the most visible beneficial critter, the syrphid fly. On the left, you'll see an image of an adult, then an egg, then a larva eating an orange aphid there, and then the pupa ready to hatch. They're also called the hoverfly or flower fly, since it feeds on nectar and pollinates flowers. Adults are not predaceous, but the larvae prey on aphids, thrips, and scale insects. You've probably seen them in the garden. They're the yellow and black. Lots of folks confuse them with wasps. They'll hover in midair and then suddenly fly off faster than lightning. The Surfeiter Hoverflies are considered the workhorse of the garden as they are second to bees as pollinators. Hoverflies often swarm around people and even land on them, presumably looking for moisture and salts on your skin. These small flies are bright yellow and black in color and are often confused with sweat bees or yellow jacket wasps. But rest assured, these flies are not bees because, as you know, flies cannot sting. Okay, let's talk about lacewings. On the left, you'll see a beautiful adult, then an example of how their eggs are laid on this spindly stick. An interesting adaptation to notice about the eggs on the end of that fine thread. Immediately after hatching, the larvae molt, then crawl up the egg stalk to feed. They are voracious predators, attacking most insects of sizable, suitable size, and especially soft-bodied ones like aphids, caterpillars, and other insect larvae. Insect eggs, and at a high population density, they will also eat each other. Then you'll see the larva with the dead caterpillar. The larvae resemble alligators. They love aphids, thrips, psyllids, mites, mealybugs, whiteflies, it goes on. They're not fussy and they kill over 200 pests in a week. And then an adult has hatched out of his empty cocoon in that lower picture. Let's talk about lacewings. The adult lacewing is about 1/2 inch long and beautiful. You've probably seen them at dusk or dawn or around a porch light at night. The females lay their eggs on slender stalks to protect against predators. Lacewings kill their prey by puncturing, then paralyzing, and then sucking out the bodily fluids. The adult feeds on pollen, nectar, and honeydew supplemented with mites, aphids, and others. They have been used in commercial agriculture for years. The soldier beetle is in the next slide, and you'll notice the adult with its wings open. An egg is in the leaf litter, which I don't know if you can see, but the larva on the leaf, that's the one we want to protect. That's the life stage that does all the pest control. And the pupa is hidden in the soil. The soldier beetle are named for the redcoats of British soldiers during the American Revolutionary War. But they come in yellow, black, and brown. They're also called leatherwings and are about 1/2 inch long, with long bodies, straight-sided color patterns, and often with red heads. They eat mostly aphids, caterpillars, and grasshoppers, and other soft-bodied insects. They live and overwinter in soil as pupae. As I said, they live under leaf cover and underground, as do most beetles, so try not to disturb your soil. Females lay their eggs in summer. And a fun fact to know and tell, beetles began pollinating over 200 million years ago. In California, we have over 100 different species of soldier beetle. Okay, let's talk about the lady beetle. Worldwide, there are nearly 6,000 species of lady beetles. They love soft-bodied insects like aphids, scale, mites, and whiteflies. After the female lays her eggs, which you'll see in that top picture, they'll hatch in 3 to 10 days, depending on ambient temperature. The larva will live and grow for about a month before it enters the pupal stage, which lasts about 15 days. So checking out that pupal stage, it is, first I want you to see the larva, which oftentimes you will think is a negative pest, and you will often see these. I do see these in my yard. So after she lays her eggs, they'll hatch, as I said, in 3 to 10 days, and then the larvae grow for about a month after it enters the pupal stage, which lasts about 15 days. After the pupal stage, the adult lady beetle will live for up to a year. Over the course of the spring and early summer, one female lady beetle can lay up to 1,000 eggs. Some scientists think that lady beetles lay both fertile and infertile eggs within that cluster. The supposition is that if food, like aphids, is in limited supply, the young lady beetle larva can feed on the infertile eggs. Notice the aphids and the larva. Just like teenagers, beneficial insects larvae are voracious eaters. I'd just like to give you a couple tips for a beneficial friendly garden. To sum up our introduction to key beneficial insects, remember, don't overwater or over-fertilize. This only encourages aphids, fungus, and other pests. And tolerate a certain level of bugs in your yard as they feed the beneficial insects that should stick around and do their job. Just want to make a note about my own garden. The first year I moved in, I think there were still residual pesticides from the previous owner. But within the second year, 0 pesticides, and all my beneficials had resumed their job. So now in the 4th year, nothing. I have nothing going for any of my ornamentals. And now Margaret is going to speak about keeping our friends fat and happy in our home environment.
Thank you, Lisa. So from Kim, we heard why we want to have beneficials. And from Lisa, we heard who are some of our beneficials. And now we're going to learn how to keep them in our garden. So it's a natural pest control, which is a goal for all of us. What you'll want to do is plant a variety of plants that'll bloom for long seasons, such as from February to October. And then remember that the insects need a few basic requirements to live. They need food, water, and shelter. So include a water feature with a little landing pad for them. Leave a little pile of wood debris and leaf litter. And also have a grassy area for shelter if you can. So how can you build a beneficial garden? Let's go over the seasons and the sun exposure and just look at a few plants that you could bring into your garden. If you're a vegetable gardener, you can scatter these plants among your crops as a natural pest control. And there are many herbs that work well, such as basil, buckwheat, chives, cilantro, dill, lavender, parsley, rosemary, sage, and many, many more. So what do you notice about these flowers? The similarity is it's the landing pad. The Santa Barbara daisy is good in containers or for trailing over a wall, and it spreads by seed on its own. Perennials such as Gaillardia are ready to start growing as soon as the ground warms in the spring, and their constancy makes them a good habitat for ground beetles, a beneficial insect that roams the garden at night in search of slugs and other tasty tidbits. So what are the similarities here? It's all the small flowers which make it easy to get to nectar and pollen. The catmint is a tough, low-growing plant and very aromatic. The foothill penstemon is always a favorite. It's a California native that thrives in the garden. In the wild, it blooms for weeks on dry slopes, and it's an outstanding performer. Rosemary and many perennial herbs have small flowers that attract our beneficial insects and are a culinary delight. The Marina madrone is a tree with shiny evergreen leaves and large drooping clusters of pink flowers, which are followed by red berries that last into late winter. Adding a tree to your landscape is an easy way to attract wildlife. The Vinehill manzanita shrub is one of our California native plants. It's known for its smooth wine red bark. The Vinehill manzanita is one of the few manzanitas that tolerate our clay loam soils. They attract hummingbirds and beneficial insects. And then look at the chaparral currant, another California native shrub, which has pale pink winter flowers. It is drought tolerant with scented leaves, and bonus, no pruning. Here are 2 more California native shrubs. The western redbud gets early spring blooms before leaves appear. It has attractive reddish seed pods in summer and attracts beneficial insects. and it's definitely a showstopper here in the spring. The Western spice bush has maroon red flowers that attract beetles. Leaves have sharp, clean fragrance, turn yellow in the autumn, adding seasonal color to your garden. So you can keep adding to your garden for all around appeal for wildlife and for you. Bladderpod is one of the only native shrubs that blooms year round. It has yellow flowers that attract beneficial insects and hummingbirds to the garden. And then it develops into attractive seed pods. Yarrow in the middle has wide flat blooms which welcome hoverflies and parasitic wasps, and they are a tough plant. They love full sun, high heat, and bloom over a long period. You can choose from many varieties and many colors to accent your garden. The ceanothus is another plant to consider. It's a nice bush all year, and it comes in varieties that range from doing a 6-inch ground cover to having a 12-foot shrub. Be sure and read your labels so you know which one you're putting in. A natural for the drought-tolerant landscape. By providing these nectar and pollen flowers can attract and keep the natural enemies of our pests in the home landscape. So you end up with a more balanced ecosystem. Here is a variety of herbs, vegetables, and annual flowers in the lists on both sides here. So don't forget your annuals. The more diverse your garden plantings, the wider range of beneficial insects you can attract. Plants that have tiny blooms held flat are particularly attractive to smaller beneficial insects. The carrot, daisy, scabiosa, and cabbage families all offer flowers that provide pollen and nectar for beneficial insects. Composite flowers provide the most attractive food source for a variety of insects. They're characterized by tiny clustered flowers that offer exposed nectar and pollen to smaller pollinators like parasitic wasps. This group includes yarrow, dill, fennel, and wild carrots. And the herbs are not just for cooking. Not only does parsley encourage hoverflies and parasitic wasps, but it also a caterpillar food for swallowtail butterflies. So you want to harvest regularly for your cooking, but let other plants flower for the insects. The flat flowers of a dill are a magnet for lady beetles, lacewings, and parasitic wasps. So how are you going to find the plants that are for you? There's a couple tools we're going to share with you. One of them is UC Davis Arboretum and Public Garden. It's a great resource to find plants. It's a great resource in general. You can visit their gardens and see their plants, and you can go on their website and just click around. You will find so much information. When you go to the Sustainable Gardening Resources, you can find the Arboretum All-Star Plant Search. And then you can choose plants for your needs and your garden. So you'll see a list of the criteria, and you can click the different answers to the criteria to kind of scale it to what you're looking for. The last one being wildflower, which you can just click for. You can click for all of them, but if you wanted, you could just click for the beneficials, or if you were doing a butterfly garden, you could click for that. So it's a great way to attract wildlife to your garden. Now, using the cowscape.org tools, it's another great tool, and you can do exhaustive search for plants that appeal to you and your beneficial friendly garden. It's the Cowscape website, and it's part of California Native Plant Society. So when you search for example, Nevada County, it comes up with 763 native plants. Okay, so now we need to narrow that down a bit. And you'll see that advanced search button up in the right-hand corner. You're going to be using that. You can also, instead of Nevada County, you can put in your city, and then you click on the advanced button. So here are the categories when you click on the advanced that you can dial in for your garden, and you can narrow down the search to see what is going to work for you. You may have deer, you may have shade, you may have be looking for a certain flowering season if you want to make sure you've got something in the winter. So then you dial that in and you come up with a smaller availability of plants. So when we put in the different criteria here, we ended up with 10 plants for Nevada County, perennial herb, part shade, the low water, and commonly available, which is an important one to add in. So you're not picking something that's really, really hard to find. So I ended up with 10 plants. Now that makes it more reasonable to figure out, okay, and there's our foothill penstemon and the coyote mint. It makes it easier to start designing what you want to put into your garden. And from there, you can take that list, any one that you make, whether it's shade, foothill, anything that you pick, you can download it into an Excel file. Now, this one is just the summary. And here's our 10 plants that I had chosen. And you can also do a detailed one, which would list every different criteria, the sun exposure, the soil, and everything, the color of the flowers, the season of the flowers, and it would list everything. You can keep that list. And then when you're looking for plants, you know, there it is. You can see, is that one on my list? Is that something that would add to my garden? And it just makes it easier to keep adding to your garden. And here's those 10 plants. So to sum up, the goal is to have a balanced and diverse ecosystem. A healthy ecosystem is better to able to resist and manage the pest invasions. The bonus is the beneficial insects, the pollinators, the birds, and the wildlife are all interconnected. So if you're helping one, you're going to be helping them all. And as Kim said, the majority of insects are not harmful to your gardens. They eat the insects that damage our plants. So know your insects and bugs. The beneficial insects are a healthy alternative to using pesticides. And so to support these beneficial insects, what do we need to do? We need to provide food, which is plants from the blooming period, provide habitat, which are leafy plants for larvae and caterpillars, and provide a water source, a little bird bath or a shallow water source, provide shelter by letting things get a little wild in the winter, dead wood and twigs and stems and grasses. So go out and add some plants to your garden. It's beautiful out there right now, and attract those beneficial insects. And by all means, have fun.
We have some pointers on working safely around beneficials. So when you're welcoming insects into your garden, make sure to take precautions so that you don't get stung or bit. Remember not to wear bright colored clothing or scented creams or hair products, because we don't want any of the insects thinking that you're flowers. Also, be sure not to be consuming food or drinks, especially sweet things, in spaces where there are lots of flowering plants. The smell attracts the pollinators who are looking for nectar. Also, don't wear loose clothing, because it's quite possible for the insects to fly up into your clothing and feel trapped, and then they will end up stinging or biting you. It's a good idea to wear gloves because that way when you're reaching into spaces that you can't see, you don't run the risk of getting bitten by something. And also, you can go ahead and put up wasp, yellow jacket, or hornet traps and do it early in the season when you first see them so that you attract the queen, which reduces the amount of those kinds of insects that you'll have in your garden. Last but not least, don't swat at the insects. Just enjoy watching them because they are your garden assistants. Finally, always use common sense when working out in your garden. The wise words from my 6-year-old grandson are, Grandma, maybe you shouldn't wear your flower dress when you're gardening. So take precautions so that you can enjoy those wonderful insects and that you won't run the risk of getting hurt.